Don't think in reverse. Let us not look back in anger nor forward in fear but around us in awareness. Leland Val van de Waal. You will never obtain any substantial measure of material wealth if you insist upon living your life as if you were looking back through the rearview mirror of your automobile. Nevertheless, this seems to be a very common error which many people have turned into a pernicious habit. That is to say, many of us spend most of our present moments, floundering mentally, in the time zone of the dead and should be forgotten past. Let the dead bury the dead. Remember the old adage which says, "Let the dead bury the dead." In other words, what you want to do is to stop looking back in your life and worrying about things which have already occurred and which you can no longer alter. For pursuing that kind of mental activity will never lead to any worthwhile accomplishments in your life. You should understand, moreover, that all of the great achievers of the past have been visionary figures. They were men and women who projected into the future and did not belabor over things which had already passed. They thought of what could be, rather than what already was, and then they moved themselves into action to bring these things into fruition. 174 Don't think in reverse. Think of the magnificent legacy which these forward-thinking individuals have left for us living today. Due to their formidable efforts, we are now able to enjoy breakfast in Paris, lunch in New York and dinner in Toronto. We are now able to live our lives in brightness and light, 24 hours a day if we so desire. We can hear the voice of a loved one on the other side of the ocean, merely by pressing some buttons on a telephone. All of these miraculous possibilities, and so much more, are available to us, simply because ordinary human beings, like you and me, have built extraordinary images on the screen of their minds, of things which had never been before. The pioneering spirit of men and women of all faiths, creeds, and color has been put to great use. Those praiseworthy individuals were able to look into the future, to see what could be rather than what already was, and then they ignored those who scoffed and said, "It couldn't be done." Also understand that all great achievers always expect to do great things and then they turn around and do them. Do not be misled by your sensory factors. We are endowed with the same, basic mental tools which the Wrights, the Edisons and the Bells possessed, and we all have the God-given ability to employ those tools, just as they did. All of us have been blessed with the mental capacity to gaze into the future and to see our lives in a richer and much more satisfying state. Therefore, regardless of the present circumstances in which you find yourself, clearly understand that if you can build the image of something new in your mind, something that far surpasses anything that has occurred up until now, you have the ability to realize a don't think in reverse 175 that result in the physical world. It could not be more clear that all of us have been born rich, in the sense of having a magnificent God-given potential, which we owe ourselves to nurture. Just how great is this human potential? Let's check with the experts. Dr. Alexander Rich, professor of biophysics at MIT, has estimated our central nervous system contains from 10 to 100 million cells, each one of which has a storage capacity equal to that of a large computer. If his estimates are even close to being correct, it would imply that the human mind has the capacity to store all of the known information in the world, with room to spare. Other specialists in the field of human creativity are similarly convinced that all people have uncharted reservoirs of untapped potential, locked up within the confines of their incredible minds. For example, Dr. W. Ross Addy, of the Space Biology Laboratory of the Brain Research Institute at UCLA, has said that, the ultimate creative capacity of your brain may be, for all practical purposes, infinite. One must conclude, therefore, the more a person delves into the potential of the human being, the more that person will become aware of how great he or she truly is. And the more that person becomes aware of his or her own potential, the easier it will be to build images of ideas or things which have never even been contemplated up until the present time. Now, pause for just a moment and reflect upon the degree to which you have been utilizing this incredible power to improve the quality of your own 176 Don't Think in Reverse life, and the lives of those people who surround you. If you know, for a fact, that you have not been tapping into these great reservoirs of talent and ability, then you should ask yourself very candidly why you have not been. For if you do this, you might just discover you have been telling yourself, for such a long period of time that you can't do certain things, that you have actually manufactured a genuine mental block in your own conscious mind. But, you should remove these mental blocks by putting yourself into a very relaxed state and by then becoming consciously aware that you can do the things you want to do. You probably just don't know how to go about doing them. If this is the position which you currently find yourself in, then you should start getting excited. For the ideas which are being brought to you in the pages of this book will show you exactly how to go about doing the things you most wish to do. Also, please be advised you need not feel regret because you have not fully utilized this great power in the past. For the truth is, there are few people anywhere who understand the real truth concerning their own hidden resources. That is the very reason why so few people live dynamic, exciting lives and so many people live confused, unproductive lives. Moreover, just on the basis of what you have read up to this point, you have already far surpassed most other people with respect to your understanding of this important potential. It would appear to be the case that the masses of people have always lived their lives in the past tense. That is to say, by virtue of holding onto old images, Don't Think in Reverse 177, they have limited themselves to only half a life. Indeed, even as far back as the turn of the century, William James, 1842–1910, one of the world's most distinguished early psychologists, reached the conclusion the average individual was using only a small portion of his or her real potential, perhaps as little as 10%. He considered this to be one of his most important psychological discoveries and, in this connection, he wrote, "Most people live, whether physically, intellectually, or morally, in a very restricted circle of their potential being. They make use of a very small portion of their possible consciousness, and of their soul's resources in general, much like a person who, out of their whole bodily organism, gets into the habit of using and moving only their little finger." One might have expected that in this modern age in which we now live, James's findings would have become anachronistic. But unfortunately, this is just not true. For the sad reality is that most of us are continuing to live our lives in much the same manner as our grandparents did. The reason we do this, you will be interested to know, is that most of us have never been trained to measure our true abilities correctly. Indeed, during the formative years of our lives, we have been inculcated with the belief that our results in school would be the factor determining whether we would win or lose in life. This notion has been fired at us from virtually every conceivable angle, until eventually, most of us have not only come to accept it intellectually, but we have actually become emotionally involved with the idea 178 Don't Think in Reverse as well. The result is, the lives of untold numbers of individuals have been needlessly sacrificed, on the altar of failure. I feel time has come for us to free ourselves from these mental shackles of the past. Let us, therefore, begin this healing process by getting in touch with the wide variety of beautiful images which we have the ability to form on the screen of our own minds. Then, let us begin to actually expect to receive the physical manifestation of each one of these images, in our own lives. Remember, if we are able to see ourselves doing, being or having something, on the screen of our conscious minds, then we are able to do, be, or have it, on the physical plane of life as well. You see, the adage is true. What you see, is what you get. Therefore, always look forward into the bright future which lies just ahead of where you currently are situated. Let me make it clear that I am not referring, in this context, to the things which you can actually see with your physical sense of sight, that is looking at what was or what is. Rather, I am referring to your creative inner eye which enables you to see what can be. The creative inner eye is that magnificent part of your personality which permits you to see into the vast reaches of the creative, non-physical world. This is the area where all life begins, or originates. The past, conversely, is the place where all life ends. But unfortunately, it is also the place where 95% of the people spend 95% of their time, which didn't think in reverse 179 is, sadly, also their life. For example, it is an accepted ritual in our culture, for old friends to spend hours upon hours reminiscing or harping back on the good old days of yesteryear. Hours upon wasted hours of precious present, living time, is squandered, discussing people who are dead and gone, or reflecting upon things which used to be, but are no more. In fact, there are actually numerous individuals who spend their days collecting things from the past, or antiques, as they are sometimes called. These people collect everything from old matchboxes to antique furniture. Then, there is another large category of people, who consume the majority of their waking hours, reliving in their minds, past negative events which have occurred in their lives. They either spend valuable hours thinking of some past injustice which someone has done to them, or possibly about some unkind remark which someone had once directed in their direction. They bemoan and agonize over past failures, or missed opportunities which they somehow let slip through their fingers. Unfortunately for them, these individuals maintain such a negative vibration, that there is not even the most remote possibility of a positive thought entering their level of consciousness. Indeed, the only thing this type of thinking will ever create is resentment and/or guilt, both deadly emotional states. But until these poor souls come to terms with the fact that it is they themselves who have been the authors of their own misfortune, and until they realize it is up to them to alter the course of their own lives, they are doomed to repeat their past 180 don't think in reverse failures over and over again. As long as they persist in believing that others are the cause of their problem, they cannot be successful, because, of course, you can never successfully change anyone but yourself. Therefore, to the extent that these people hold onto their false beliefs, they will continue to think in reverse. And it goes without saying, you cannot move ahead while your mind is traveling in the opposite direction. Take a good look at yourself. Could you be one of the individuals whom I have just portrayed? If you are, I would strongly suggest that you bring your mind to a screeching halt. Then reevaluate your present position and re-examine your future goal. Look straight ahead and fill your consciousness with great and grand thoughts of what you ultimately could do and what you eventually can be. Become acutely aware of the direction your mind is traveling, because ultimately, that is the way your life is going to unfold.